Good evening, ladies and germs. It is 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It is 7 a.m. Japanese Standard Time. As well, this is the Mocha Live podcast. My name is Max Cohen. I'm the lead writer for the Museum of Crypto Art. Joining me this week is Shivani Mitra, director and curator of the Museum of Crypto Art. What's up, Shivani?
Hello.
And a
Everyone's
very special
exciting.
guest. Yeah, we have the artist, founder of Shinsei Galverse, lead singer of Satellite Young, who I listened to and I really, really liked, Emmy Kusano. Thank you for being with us, Emmy.
Hi, Mocha, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we are super excited as well. So let's just jump right into it. We have a lot to talk about today, or a lot we can talk about today.
hmm
The first thing I want to talk about is aesthetics. So, Emmy, you were born in 1990, but you've become pretty widely known in your photography and your music also for this like 1980s inspired aesthetic, right? In your AI project, Neural Fad, it's there in like this hair metal type clothing. If anyone saw the graphic that we put out for this podcast today. That was a piece from Emmy's Neural Fad collection. And your music is synths and it's fuzz and it's electronic beats, right?
Yes.
So I'm curious why this attachment to a decade like the 80s specifically, considering you didn't personally experience it.
Um, Firstly, I spent a lot of my childhood renting CDs from video rental store, and I always like transferring into mini disc. I'm not sure like if it's popular in US, but like a little MD, and the store near my home was like rimming like early 2000s J-pop or like Britney Spears or Avril Lavigne. But however, like I went to the library and I could listen CDs and records from like after like before 80s. Like they are all free. Like if I have to go to like Blockbuster, I have to pay for like lending 2000 CDs, but I was always like digging like Kylie Minogue or Madonna or Maria Takeuchi, and they're like really, um, to me, it's very more attracting. Uh, and like I was fascinated like begin digging like all the like TV show like in our YouTube time, and I think like um the era I didn't experience that really attract me so much. And like I was also watching like all the anime when I was like even younger, and like I've I noticed that like lots of like even I'm watching like all the anime, I noticed like there's a detail become like melancholic, like thinking about like all those young characters no longer um same age as my mom, or like I found the sense of like in I don't know, like the fleeting in nature of life.
Mm,
um yeah, it's it's really drives me my own creativity from like a retro thing.
interesting. So
Yeah.
I have that with the 60s a little bit. Not
Yeah.
I think more like musically. I grew up listening to all sorts of like old like
Yeah.
hippie records and the Woodstock folks. Shivani,
Mhm.
any attachment to an old time period?
Definitely like 60s Star Trek.
Yeah.
That's like what I grew up watching. Like those episodes of like these little aliens that are blobs and there's like a poof and you see a fog machine and then William Shatner comes out. Yeah, I mean some of that stuff I love, but I feel like I definitely think the 80s has like a energy to it, which is post hippie and pre-tech.
Mhm.
And it's a little like kind of coked up for
Yeah.
lack of a better
Yeah.
for lack of a better word. And it's fun and it's exciting and it makes me like excited. That's probably the yeah, maybe one of the decades. Your nostalgia for the 60s, how does it manifest, Max?
Um, that's a good question. I think just like a general vibe. I don't know. It's still the music that I listen to the most,
Yeah.
most like frequently. But the 80s is there too. I think that's so interesting, that idea of being post hippie but pre tech, but also kind of being anticipatory about tech. And Emmy, this is something I see a lot in your aesthetic. It's not just 80s aesthetic,
Yeah.
it's this 80s aesthetic that is very like utopic in its idea of
Mhm.
the future, right? It's
Mhm.
like, hair metal glam. Um,
Yeah.
I think that and that comes through in neural fat as well, a lot too.
Mhm. Yeah, it's really interesting. Like every era has a some kind of like uniqueness, and as uniqueness, like if you compare it with like after 2010, because I think right now it's very like all the trends has been like become global, and like people are tends to um spend the time and like more informations. So like before like 90s, I think people has a more like exaggerated trend that was like domestically born, or like it's very like TV centric or like magazine centric culture, and it's
Mm.
we never like go back to that era, so which makes me very melancholic. Yeah.
We had Linda Dunya on a couple weeks ago, and she works with like AI. She's based in Senegal, and
Mhm.
a lot of what we talked about was AI bias, and
Mhm.
also the way that AI kind of like normalizes, um,
Mm.
or what's it that it just takes the average of everything, right? And you had
Mhm.
mentioned just a moment ago this like global culture that's more internet inflected. There's less and less individual nuance of cultures and
Mhm.
of time periods. It's all kind of becoming flatter.
Mhm.
And NeuralFad, your AI project, is
Mhm.
so boisterous,
Mhm.
but it's also boisterous like in its design, and it's based on what do you call it? Records of subcultures that never actually existed,
Mhm.
um, which I find so fascinating because we're in this moment where fashion, just as maybe a touchstone for everything else, everything's kind of flattening with the use of AI, and you
Mhm.
are siloing in a kind of like fairy tale in order to do away with that flatness. Could you talk a bit about that?
Yeah. So the past has like it unique like allure, and the farther back you go, like there's like few visual record you find. So like digital and instant camera were not uh widespread. So often like we have a like black and white photo, and our imagination like have to like feel the rest. So like additionally, like not all song like in trends are passed and documented in internet. So especially like a local and niche one. So which I created in Eurofat. This can make it like challenging for because like I'm making Mid Journey. So Mid Journey is all like English language prompt model.
Hmm.
So
Mhm.
my so I I was using my limited vocabulary, and I have to explain like really niche one. Like it's easy to come up, like if you put the like Michael Jackson or Mickey Mouse, like it's really popular and it's always like turn out really good. But if I have to put like really niche culture, like Japanese, like 80s, like certain fashion tribe that was existing in like years or something, it's never like turns out really good. So I was like talking to Chat GPT, and I just put like all the Wikipedia of like that culture, and I want to make a prompt. I want to make a change a little bit, or like I was like always like consulting with ChatGPT to make a like really great prompt to Mid Journey, and that process was really interesting and makes me think about, oh, like maybe Japanese unique culture, like all those are like make it more like a filter for AI era. So like you like many people already using like Tambike or Angara K as a like really popular prompt, which was like like really specific niche Japanese like young youth group, and it's really yeah, it's really interesting era is coming up, I think.
Mm. Have you seen a lot of other like Western biases in the AI that you've been using, other than just having to do it like having to actually prompt in English?
Yeah, yes, I see lots of like Western not only Western, but most of the prompt is really created by human biases. So uh, I definitely feel there is a lack of data of like South Asian people's face. I think RE version, like white people face has been like really turns like more realistic, and also like I was trying to type how like a house husband like wearing apron and cooking and woman in a suits or something, but it's always like turned out like woman is wearing apron and a man is wearing suits. So
Mm.
it's so they have like they really um have a like a stereotype. They're really affected by like human stereotypes. So I have to like hack of that stereotype by prompting. So um so Japanese 80s makeup is really inspired by like Western glam rock style, but it's less heavy. So I try to put like glam rock style like 50% less or something, like lighter version of glam rock, or like mixing up like different cultures. And it's been really interesting, but I think um yeah, think about the humans stereotype, and I have to hack all the processes.
Sure. So I want to ask, or I want to kind of move into more like generalized AI questions, but
Hmm.
kind of as like an intro to that, like Shivani, I'm wondering because I want to talk about like the attitudes about AI from like different like youth cultures, and I, at least in the U.S., don't have a finger on the pulse of either AI or youth culture. So Shivani, I'm wondering if you can maybe do a better job than I can at I don't know, identifying how AI is kind of sneaking into the lives of like young people in the US from your conversations you had, from the observations you've made.
Well, I mean, probably the most obvious one is dating apps. Um, like we have very good algorithms that match us based on things we type in, based on the zip code we're in. Like that's the most basic version. And probably half the people I know are meeting on dating apps. So maybe that's like the sneakiest one. But you wouldn't call it like AI. You would call it like very good machine learning and statistics. Um, I think certainly people are interested in the capabilities like across age and like race, gender, country of like something like ChatGPT.
Hmm.
But the usability of the thing really stops for a certain point for your average person, aside from the novelty factor. I think there's a long way to go. But that's why I find what Emmy's doing and like Linda and a lot of artists from different backgrounds who are trying to break this stuff and understand what its capabilities are.
Sure.
Um, I would just like repackage the same question for you, Emmy. In Japan, I mean, I really feel like we're in the Western world and East Asia, especially China, right? Maybe not as much Japan, but there's a whole part of the East that we just have absolutely no idea
Hmm.
on what is developing there, what is true versus what is not, because we get news that's very different from the reality. So, like, I'm curious for you in Japan, if young people are gravitating towards like something like AI or something like digital art, or
Mm.
is there kind of like a block saying like, okay, that's interesting and it's cool, but it's happening in a way that doesn't really affect us. I mean, maybe it's all the same because we're all on the internet, but I don't know. um,
Yeah, obviously, like from this year, is everything has been changing, and I think like ChatGPT and like Mid Journeys stuff were definitely democratized, like AI. But I'm not sure like if it's become like norm, like American world. Still, it's a bit um um. I think ChatGPT text is like more feels more natural when I use in English. It's still like Japanese friendly conversation is very machine like, and also I cannot still prompting in Japanese in Mid Journey. I can do it in Niji Journey, but it's I still feel have a gap. But these like language barrier is I think we're gonna break in like a 2 months or 3 months. It's very
Yeah.
fast, and I think Japanese people in general really open minded for like latest technology. I think
Mhm.
because of the um like it's a national character, I guess, like very
Mhm.
optimistic about the technology,
Mhm.
and I think that's because of the our like realistic way of thinking. I think like it's very open mind for like science and chemistry compared to Christian thought, and it's and also like if you watch like Japanese anime, like robots are always friends. Yeah, and
Yes.
I've been to like a robot contest in like US and Japan high school, and I really see the difference of the design of the robot. Like American one is really like a weaponish a rook, so it's like a Boston Dynamics looks, but in
Yeah.
Japan like it's more like a Doraemon or Astro Boy rook. It's very like technology has to be always cute for Japanese people. And
Mm.
yeah, like everyone has a kind of like neutral thought of the technology, like AI. Like not many people are hating that much when compared to
So
West.
I want to hang on that idea of being optimistic towards technology because I think that
Mm,
that also describes the 80s, at least
mhm,
from the American side, in a really powerful way. Because the visual touchstones for me of the 80s, it's like Star Wars, it's
mm,
Tron, it's like
mhm.
video arcades, full of
Yeah.
just like lights and sounds and whirring and like
Uh-huh.
mechanical,
Yeah.
I don't know, like stimuli.
Uh-huh.
And it does seem like the 80s was maybe the only kind of decade as a whole where optimism around technology as a whole was kind of universally felt and also blended its way into the aesthetics. Because at least
Yeah.
in the US and totally just my experience, but the rise of the internet in the 90s and the 2000s, there was almost like a dystopic dirtiness to the
Mhm.
internet culture. Not that it wasn't beautiful in its own way, but that I think that optimism was very quickly lost amid the like slush of the internet.
Mhm.
So, and I know that you have made a large part of your career taking photographs in Harajuku, which is, again, just from my perspective, this like breeding ground for
Mm.
technology and optimism around technology and like
Yeah.
really interesting technological aesthetics and like really wild aesthetics.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking about that today in terms of AI because it does feel like this is the new sea change in
Yes,
technology,
definitely.
but
Mm.
no aesthetics. I think on a ground level, right? There's aesthetics within art, but no aesthetics have really blended or came out of that yet. I think it's just too
Mhm.
infantile. The way that
Mm.
um, an internet motivated aesthetic did emerge.
Mm.
So this comes back to a larger question I wanted to ask you, which is actually a quote from your NFTN talk, which is where does newness come from?
Mm.
And I don't really know where that newness came from in the 80s. Again, it just seemed to kind of spring up. I know that Star Trek inspired it, at least in the West, and Star Wars, the original, came out in 1977, so that probably inspired it somewhat. But now we're looking at this new paradigm shift, moving into the AI age, or an age that's at least going to be aesthetically informed by AI to some serious extent. So I'm wondering, with the rise of AI, this question of everything's being very muddled. Where let me back up a little bit. What defines new for you? How are we going to know when something new has emerged from this kind of AI age?
That's a hard question. I don't know yet, and it's not really obvious than 90s or to like 80s, or yeah, it's like it's very become like more complicated. But I think the new and period of 2010 to 2020 is characterized by like filter bubble created by social media algorithm and accelerating like division or like pursuing like justice. And post 2023, I think new may characterized by a semi-transparent layer of information that like
Hmm.
even denser filter. So perhaps we're gonna be like too busy watching the endless reboots. It's kind of sounds really dystopian. Like you're gonna watch like Back to the Future 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10,
Yeah.
like like episode 200 with like Ghibli Studio Ghibli style or something. So yeah, I don't know. Like no one can expect future, but I believe like that even like more like chaotic, and it will be really hard to finding like aesthetic in each era. We already cannot find like aesthetic for 2010. It's hard, but I think like all device is really can be a like fashion item. Like like young people loves like cassette for like fashion or something. Yeah, like I think like digital devices only like can tell like it's from past. Like all the fashion is gonna be like really cycling. Like you don't look weird like if you wear some 80s or 70s or like Y2K fashion, right? So, but if you're just having like iPod, like first generation, it would be like really retro. So I think
Yeah.
hardware is definitely bring you a sentimental feeling, but I don't know the newness about 2010, like 20s, and
Hmm.
it's really hard.
Well, I think the thing that's difficult for me to sort out when it comes to figuring out the quote unquote AI aesthetic is that AI is a system that has to be trained on input,
Mm,
right? As far as I know, and as far as what I've been told by people a lot more intelligent about AI than I am, AI can assemble, but it can't
mhm,
imagine um,
mm,
in the way that
mm,
we can. It can't extrapolate outside the bounds of what it knows. So,
mm.
Shivani, I'd love to get your opinion. Can AI even create new, or can it only to this point merge, recycle?
I guess it depends on obviously what you define new as. I mean, it's basically remix culture to a max. I feel like that's the only aesthetic I could say I've witnessed through crypto art, and then with like AI is like a lot of remixing. And there's this kind of stable diffusion aesthetic, which is like fuzzy, like everyone knows it's AI now. But beyond like the generated image, um, I mean, I definitely think there's like I don't know, it's a bit like dark humor meets like cutesiness.
Yeah.
That is a important aesthetic.
Like
And
what?
Max, and then um, like I can think of a couple like Instagram accounts and projects where there is some kind of character which has a cutesy element to it, but then it'll say like I'm so alone, like on the bottom, or something that makes you kind of laugh because you're like, I get it, like we're all kind of alone behind our screens on social media, like, but at the same time we can laugh about it.
It's like
I would
bright,
agree with
bright
you.
nihilism.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Emmy, that division is a lot of the ways that the first 2010s.
Hmm.
Um, at least from a social perspective, like labeling and virtue signaling, you know. But Max, your question was around AI specifically, or like
Yeah, again, like,
broadly?
I think that when we look back on internet culture, right, what it was
Mm.
a lot of the time was blending of culture, blending of individual
Mm-hmm.
culture, blending of individual perspectives, and from that emerged something more or less, new, uh, in that kind of marriage. But AI doesn't do that necessarily. AI doesn't take
Oh, if it can
things
create.
that are,
Uh,
yeah, it doesn't create anything new, even in the marriage. I mean, it can.
well,
It's yeah,
yeah. I
it's a
mean,
it's
it,
tough.
it is. It is anthrop. It is what's the right word?
Anthropomorphic.
Anth- Anthropomorphic. Yeah, it is. It is taking on a human identity because it is a reflection of us. So
Mm.
like I do talk to people who are like, yeah, I've asked very intimate questions to my AI that I like.
Mm.
Or like I
Mm.
run something on my laptop that like I'm getting closer to. So like it is like becoming a mirror, right? But its ability to infer, like I think there has to be a lot more technical advancement, which is all possible to be honest. It's about forming like a longer memory context so that the and also the thing editing itself. So like not just an
Mm.
LLM that's static, but something that is able to recognize all the different LLMs that exist. Like there is a theory on how it could create, but I think that is very much going to take time and a question of do we want to go there for the average person? Um, am I interested in having that be like a sentient thing? And if it is sentient, what rights does it have? Um,
So I want to phrase
yeah.
this question in another way, because I think that informs it really well. But I want to go back to my previous point of, like, so you have the internet culture, right, which is a mind and a mind kind of meshing in a way they haven't before, and then something new emerges, right? When
Hmm.
any of us use AI, whether it's me using ChatGPT or Emmy using Midjourney, you are interacting with the grandiose glut of all information, but just the parts of it that you're querying, essentially. So
Mm.
it's not a secondary mind that is coming into uh, collision with you. It is your mind being amplified, essentially, right,
Hmm.
and touching a
Yeah.
little bit further than
Yeah.
what it could before. And I think about neural fad within this context, because all of the clothing that you've designed, all of those characters that have been created, they're unintelligible. They're completely new, but they're still somehow settled in a context.
Mm.
So I love this idea of you inventing a fake history, but it's still a history that branches off from known history. I feel like
Mm.
that's a really good kind of analogy for how this works, right? Like, it
Mhm.
still is
Mhm.
based in the foundations of reality, but like twists a little bit. It's almost like historical fiction as opposed to, a fairy tale.
Mhm. Yeah, I still, I think, um, in a couple years, or I don't know, like after 6 months, it's like Six Fingers gonna be retro, new retro. I don't know, like it's. I think AI generated image is touring to perfection. So um, I'm not sure like all the glitch is happening in next 3 months, but I'm just keep making, and I think but how about talking about the recycling thing, I would argue AI can indeed imagine. So like who is to say combination is countless and all the components are not like from like imagination. So um yeah, like I've always like remixing like lots of inspiration, like even from my creation. Satlayan is like definitely the like creation that like remixing and like changing like fake 80s idol like singing about uh, like Tinder or like AI. So it's very like paradoxical, and I think like always like newness is came from like all the component. And but like if I use AI, like more unexpected like mix is come out, and it's very fun to watch like all the glitch is happening. I sometimes like do like misspell, or I I choose wrong words, but if it's like turns really fun, I'm just gonna keep it. And but I have to like say, it's really important to more when it's I said like democratizing of like aesthetic. So like when the time all the aesthetic is has been democratized, like you have to like tell your story or like narrative
Mhm.
from the human behind the machine is more important, become more important than before. I believe so.
Mm. Shivani, before I was going off on whatever rambling nonsense I was going off of, and you like put your fingers together and like licked your lips as if I had served you like a Christmas goose on a platter. Do you want to say whatever it was on your mind then?
I don't remember. What did you say?
I have no idea. I just saw you
Amplify.
like literally put your
Oh,
hands
yeah, yeah,
together.
yeah. Oh, yeah, I mean, you said something about how it amplifies us. Like, I really do think it is like Emmy, your neural fad project for me, I love it because it's your brain like on steroids. You know, like
Yes.
it's all these images and ideas and thoughts and like ramblings and like weird wispy feelings that you're able to put into images, which is so cool. And I see the whole
Thank you.
story that you're building, right? I mean, I can imagine even from this set of images you're building, you could create a whole game or a whole movie, right? And
Yeah.
maybe those tools will be possible soon. So Max, maybe my thing was like, I agree with you that it is like an amplification of our
Mm.
brains, and it allows us to like manifest in a real way, like things that we're imagining.
Yeah,
Which is a huge leap forward for humanity, I think.
definitely. So I have one more question about AI, and then we have to surface from this topic
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we can't get down. So my last question about AI, Emmy, is you said, and I'm gonna say just a long quote of yours. You said AI is interesting for the way it offers insight into an individual's different desires, but given the prospect of infinite content, I also feel that it could obscure historical truths. I am anxious for a world in which there is no longer a boundary between real and fictional pasts, and that's both super inspiring but also
Mhm.
I think quite disturbing based
Mm.
on who's going to be wielding that power. But I think that that sentence is really pregnant, right? The way you say you're anxious for this world, as both anxious that it's coming or you're ready for it to come. So I'm curious, what are you anxious about within that paradigm, a paradigm that you, at least with neural fat, are helping to create or kind of paving the way for?
Uh, yeah, like as I mentioned earlier, I'm very scared of future that you have to watch Back to the Future episode 300. Or like you just keep watching, like, and you put the favorite, maybe like your crush in the movie, like using favorite actor or like actress, or like you just use filter to like Studio Ghibli version or like something. So yeah, we're gonna overflow with infinite generated information, and then you just keep watching. You just keep consuming, and like even though like, oh, there's a like incident is happening, it's like world war has started, but people was, oh, I don't care, like might be like deep
Mhm.
fake. I don't know like if it's true or not. Like
Mm.
we said post truth era like couple of years ago, but I think like like real one real post truth era is kind of weird way to say, but is like on the way. And yeah, it's really disturbing, but I think we still have to face like both utopian side and dystopian side, and we have to use your imagination to think about um like what is bad scenario, like good scenario, and that way, like I believe that process makes better world and better use for new cutting edge technology. Otherwise, like it's always like all the technology that we're using now is exponentially changing every day, and it's
Mhm.
hard to catch up with raw and rules. So we have to, yeah, we have to think about what would like all the ethic come from. So yeah.
Yeah. I use ChatGPT a lot when I'm writing fiction. I'm working
Hmm.
on a project that requires me to translate a lot into Hebrew,
Hmm.
which is really hard if you're not using an AI. But the AI, I've fine tuned it so that it translates into Hebrew and then it transliterates that Hebrew back into English letters that I can read.
Hmm.
But one thing I've noticed is that if I ask it to translate something twice, it gives me two different answers. So
Mm.
for the last however long I've been writing whatever this project is, I have no idea if I've used a lot of Hebrew. I have no idea if it makes sense contextually, if they're real words. I have no idea. Shivani, I'm wondering. I promise this is the last AI, and then we gotta come up for air. But I'm wondering, is there any way to keep not truth necessarily, but like factuality intact when the AI is going to be when AI is going to just become more and more of a comprehensively used tool for information gathering. Like, is there a way to not keep a secondary form of Hebrew from developing based on ChatGPT's limited understanding of
Um,
Hebrew?
I don't think so.
Yeah, right.
But honestly, it's not the AI to be worried about. It's the human that's using the AI. Like humans do all kinds of fucked up stuff. Like we're the ones that would most likely take the thing and do something with it that would be really weird. Like that's why we're in the post-truth era. Is like a lot of governments have done that. So that's my thought process is like I'm not so afraid of accelerating or growing AI. I am more interested in like, are human beings taking the time to reflect? Like,
Hmm.
are people finding goodness? Like,
Am
that's
I going to
why
go
I
buy
think
a
artists
pocket Hebrew
like,
dictionary and cross reference everything?
no, but that's why like the interaction of artistry and emerging technology is so important because it brings a humanity to it.
Yeah.
It
Mhm.
asks you to think about why you're doing it and where and who's involved and like what stories are we trying to tell. So yeah, I don't think I think it's inevitable, but I think if humans can make choices in better ways, which involves reflecting and trying to navigate this new landscape together, then maybe we'll save ourselves from the worst.
Yes. All right.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you.
All right,
Yeah.
we're coming up for air because I gotta ask you, Emmy, a couple questions about like crypto art and NFTs and
Yes.
stuff, just because this is nominally a crypto art and NFT based podcast.
Hmm.
Um, so from what I understand, Emmy, so you started in NFTs because your son started Zombie Zoo, right?
Yes.
The NFT project, and then
Hmm.
you kind of were now involved in this ridiculous daily minutia, and then you created Shinsei Galverse, and I'm wondering, knowing that you have this multifaceted artistic practice in Japan with fashion and photography and music, how did your peers kind of react to you going deeper into the NFT and crypto art world? Was there acceptance? Was there pushback?
There are always like pushback, like when I'm using like new technology, like AI or crypto. But most of the people are surrounded me is really um very cheering, and I think like I have been struggle in like maintaining focus, and I'm really like hyperactive ADHD person. I cannot focusing on like doing like a um you know polishing my skill set to get. But like I was like a little bit good at singing or like creating like worldview, but I cannot. I couldn't make it like all by myself, and I need like big fund for. Um, I didn't have money to create anime, and but because of the Web3 and like AI, like all those like new technology has been really empower me, and I think Web3 is connecting like all the dots that I had, and Shinsei Galvez is the one successful case that like I had a taste and I wanted to recreate like 90s anime, and it was not possible in 2018, and all those technology has been empowered me my like personally, so people are really yeah, encouraging, I think.
And are cryptocurrency, like not
um
cryptocurrency, like
mm,
blockchain tools, are they in wide use by Japanese artists today? Like, do you know other Japanese crypto artists that are,
yeah,
have kind of,
it's increasing, and I think Zombie Zoo has definitely democratizing NFTs. My son, he has been on a Japanese TV show more than 50 times. Like when they're explaining like what is NFT, like they always put the people and like dog, meme dog photo and zombie zoo. So and
That's
like
cool.
so like many of the artists like who are not good at like technology, like they started because of my son, and like they always said, oh, I started NFT because like 8 years old people of like child can do it, I maybe I can do it, and they started. So yeah, and many people draw illustration and animation in Japan, so many people are started using AI technology. But um, that's only like people surrounded me. So I think, yeah, if I think about like all the mainstream in Japanese like artists, like many artists are like scared of like crypto and NFT because um yeah, they don't have a image of like all the authentic artist is doing. Like they have an image of like PFP or like Web3, like tech survey people like having a community or something. So yeah, I'm teaching at the Tokyo University of Arts, and I'm teaching at the freshman and university of like it's best art university in Japan. Um, but most of the people never tried NFT or yeah, even AI, I think. So I'm I'm trying to mass adaptation for yeah, uh, where like good I want to bring great artists into this world.
I want that too.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting point you made about um, kind of just seeing NFTs all together through the lens of PFPs, because I think we do that too in
Mm,
the US, but
mm,
I think what the US has is a assumption of its own self superiority, an
mm,
assumption of its own being central in the kind of global dynamic.
mhm,
Uh, I promise I'm going to make a point from this. Um, so you look at these PFP projects, right? Let's take CryptoPunks as an example, and it's more or less like it has no real cultural touchstones of any kind.
mm,
There are different skin colors and
mm,
gender identities of CryptoPunks, but it's very surface level, right? It's not attached to a specific history. It's not attached to a specific country. It's
mm,
and because of that, it strikes me as very Western and very American and very white, which is assuming it, it is like the culture. Also, bless you, Shivani. I saw that.
Thank you.
But I think it's interesting that to say a Japanese audience who may not have as much automatic exposure to NFTs, it may be a lot more alienating to see a completely I don't know, a cultural PFP project like CryptoPunks or like Bored Apes in
Mm.
place of something that might have more intrinsic value. Like there's, I think we're lacking in like aesthetic visual
Yeah.
diversity in a lot of crypto art. I was talking to Andre
Agreed.
Siegelbaum the other day, and we were talking about Jewish mythology, and there's not a lot of like Jews working in crypto art that I know of. And while that's not an issue necessarily in and of itself, I think it's a broader issue, which is people hide. They don't hide necessarily, but they are hidden behind PFP projects that take
Mm.
away their own identities, and they're working oftentimes with a flattened artistic continuum that denies specific cultural touchstones. I don't, maybe I'm not going to make a point on that after all. I don't like that.
Yeah. I totally agree that like back in 2021 when I was really about to releasing Shinsei Galbers, there's so many like anime NFT that was created by
Mm-hmm.
Western people,
Mhm.
and yeah, it's like some of them has a like respect for like Japanese culture, but some of them are just using random Japanese word and it looks like Japanese, but it's very weird to me. So I was making Shinsei Galbers because the not because like anime is a trend. It's just because like we love that worldview. So yeah, I think I think it's very important to bring more like different like diverse culture, not only just like ethnically or like countries, but also like lots of different industry. I think NFT is just a tool, and we are still tinkering like how we use. Like, it can be like community ticket. It can be it's token, but it can be like art certificate or I don't know. Like we still have to like talk and like multidisciplinary view with like I don't know how my English is uh um, make it understandable, but
No,
yeah,
that's good.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I totally agree.
Hmm.
Yeah. I
yeah. In fact,
go ahead.
no, Shivani, what were you going to say? I wasn't going to say anything.
I was just gonna say, I was looking it up, but Shinzi Galverse is like visually one of the coolest projects.
Thank
Um,
you.
and
It
I
sure reminds me
think
of Sailor
a lot,
Moon.
yeah, it's so fun, and you know, there's so much like Japanese exoticism
Hmm.
that happens, and I feel like it's not something to like look down on, but to be like, okay, actually when it comes from a team that is integrating a whole culture and a past and then reiterating it and experimenting with NFTs, it's just way cooler. The thing that comes out, it has so much more depth. Um
Mm.
and I agree with you that NFTs are like very much in their infancy, and I think in the art crypto art sense, we get very tied up to like the moral high ground of what art is, when the reality is that NFTs are very much an experimental tool to make art and to make other things.
Yeah.
Um, and I think you have explored that without judgment, and not a lot of artists have been able to find that balance, um,
Mm.
which is super cool.
Ditto. Well, I echo that sentiment, and I think we're also at about the 50-minute mark, so maybe we should get out of here. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
All right, great. Uh, a resounding yes from Emmy and Shivani.
Yeah.
All right, well, this has been a wonderful conversation. Emmy, thank you so much for joining us. I loved picking your brain. Um,
Thank you.
and this has been another episode of the Mocha Live podcast. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We'll be back here next week at around the same time. So we'll let you know when. So have a lovely rest of your day, everyone. Shivani, Emmy, thanks again for being here, and we'll see you later.